John Bell didn't believe in spirits. Not when he moved his family to Red River, Tennessee. Not even when he saw something in his cornfield, twisted, crouched, watching him. But something was out there, and it had its eyes on both him and his daughter. 12-year-old Betsy Bell was yanked from her bed, tied to the post by her hair, and slapped so hard it left welts across her face. This thing didn't knock books off shelves. It didn't whisper in shadows. It hurt children, and it meant to kill. The haunting was so violent, a future U.S. President, Andrew Jackson, showed up to investigate and left terrified. And when it was over, John Bell was dead. Cause of death, officially, supernatural forces. This isn't folklore. This is the story of a man who lost control and a family that couldn't run fast enough. This is Project Strangeville, and this is the Bell Witch. John Bell was up before the sun, same as always. He walked the rows of corn every morning. It was routine, comforting, predictable, until it wasn't. Near the edge of the field, just past the tree line, he saw something crouched low between the stalks. At first, it looked like a dog, but its spine was bent wrong, arched like it had been snapped and healed in the wrong shape. Its legs were too long, its eyes too still. It didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared, like it had been waiting for him. John raised his rifle and fired. The shot was clean. The thing yelped, low and almost human, then vanished into the corn. John ran to where it had been. There was no blood, no prints, no broken stalks, nothing. He stood there, rifle still warm in his hands, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know what he was looking at. He didn't speak of it, not because he was afraid, but because he didn't trust what he saw. And for a man like John Bell, if he couldn't trust his eyes, what else could he trust? John Bell wasn't just a farmer. He was a problem solver, respected, clear-headed, and devout. By 1817, he had everything a man could want: 320 acres, a growing family, a good name. Red River was supposed to be peace, stability, legacy, but something was wrong, and he could feel it. John tried to shake the feeling, but whatever had crouched out there in the corn was already turning its attention to the rest of the family. You ever see something out of the corner of your eye and for a second your brain fills in the blank with something wrong? Most of the time we shake it off. We laugh it off, we go, okay, I'm tired, that was nothing. But what if it wasn't? John knew for a fact that he hit whatever that thing was, and yet nothing was there when he went to track it. This wasn't just some coat on a chair that suddenly looks like a person watching you in the dark. John knew he saw something. He just couldn't explain what it was that he saw. Let me know in the comments, if you've just brushed it off or if you've told everyone you bumped into what you saw. Which of your friends would be the first one to tell you that you're crazy if you did? A few days after John saw the thing in the corn, his son Drew was walking the edge of the property. The sky was quiet, the woods were still, but something about the air felt wrong, like the kind of silence that waits for you to notice it. That's when he saw it. Perched on a low branch near the tree line was a massive black bird, too large to be natural, bigger than any crow, bigger than any hawk, bigger than anything he'd ever seen before. It didn't twitch, didn't blink, just stared at the house like it had every right to be there. Drew stepped forward, and without a sound, it was gone. Just disappeared. No flap, no screech, no feathers, just gone. That afternoon, Betsy was playing outside, 12 years old, swinging on the ropes her father had tied to the old oak tree. She looked across the yard and saw another girl, same age, sitting on the swing across from her. Green dress, black hair, swinging gently, watching. Betsy didn't recognize her, hadn't seen her walk up, hadn't heard anything. She took a step forward, and the girl vanished, instantly, silently. the swing still swayed. That night at dinner, Betsy brought it up. She wasn't scared, just confused, curious. Said she saw a girl in a green dress sitting on the swing, and then she was just gone. No one laughed. No one dismissed it. No one had an answer for it. John didn't say a word. He just looked at her and kept eating. That night, the house made its first sound. Who hasn't heard a made-up story from a kid before? Some of them are actually pretty funny, but there's a difference between nonsense and something that just lands a little too close to reality. And that's what John must have been thinking. First his son sees something, and now his daughter sees something. It's like these weird sightings are just normal conversation at the dinner table now. Too much is happening, too often for John's liking. And what comes next would make any normal man lose his mind. The knocking started late at night. 3 sharp hits on the east wall, then silence. A minute later, another knock. Different wall, same rhythm. John sat up in bed, listening, grabbed his rifle, and stepped outside. But every time he checked, the sound moved. North wall, south wall, the roof. Always just far enough away to stay invisible. Every time he went after it, it vanished. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. Whatever it was, it knew the layout of the house. John didn't panic. Figured it was kids from around town playing pranks. He made a plan. Told the family to stay quiet, not to tell neighbors, not to talk about it at school. He still believed it was a person, and he intended to catch them. He waited with his rifle, ready to rush out the second he heard the knock again. But every time he moved, it stopped. This went on for days. Eventually, he pulled Dean aside, one of the family slaves, asked if he had seen anyone strange or heard anything at night. Dean nodded. He said he'd seen a big black dog around the property. Said it didn't bark, didn't run, just sat there and stared. And he wasn't the only one to see things. Some of the other slaves had seen glowing orbs floating above the ground on the edge of the woods. John didn't say a word. He just walked away. That night, the knocking stopped. It stepped inside. Betsy Bell was asleep in her bed when her blankets were yanked to the floor. She reached for them, half asleep, and something pulled harder. Her head jerked backwards. Something had tangled itself into her hair, wrapped it, pulled it, tied it to the bedpost. She screamed. When the family rushed in, they found her still tied, arms shaking, face red, welts already forming on her skin. There was no one in the room, no open windows, no broken lock, no explanation. And this wasn't a mistake, it was a warning. Whatever this thing was, it hated her. It went after a 12-year-old girl, and it meant to hurt her. The next night, the sounds came back, only this time, they brought chains. A parent's worst nightmare is to watch something terrible happen to their child. What would you have done if you saw your kid tied to the bed by her hair with welts all over her from something slapping her? That's what was happening to John and Lucy that night. What would you do? I mean, it's the early 1800s. You don't just call the local realtor and put the house up for sale. And as horrible as that sounds, this isn't even the worst of it. Before we go any further, if you like stories about the paranormal, supernatural, and true crime, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's see what happens to John's younger boys. It started with the sound, low, repetitive, hollow, like something gnawing on wood. The boys were already on edge. They hadn't been sleeping, not since Betsy. But that night, they woke to the sound of something chewing on the corner of their bedpost. Loud and deliberate, right next to their heads. They jumped up and the sound stopped. Just like that. They searched. Nothing. But the second they laid back down, it started again. And then the chains came, dragging slowly across the wooden floor, one link at a time. The air went cold. The boys couldn't breathe. And just outside the door, a choking sound, like someone dying, but no one was there. The next morning, John walked the house top to bottom, checked the boards, the nails, the attic. Still nothing. And now, it wasn't just the children hearing it. Lucy was hearing it too. Late at night, she heard a voice humming, low, soft, like a lullaby through the wall. Then came the whispers, a few words here and there, unclear and foreign, and sometimes her name. John was losing his grip. His house wasn't safe. His family was unraveling. So he did something he hadn't done yet. He asked for help. James Johnston was a neighbor, respected man, Christian, didn't scare easy. John invited him to stay the night, not because he wanted comfort, but because he needed a witness. And that night, the house didn't disappoint. James heard the gnawing, the dragging, the choking. He rose from the bed and heard a voice, low, clear, from the darkness. It never said exactly what it said, only that it spoke. And when it did, James prayed aloud. The house went quiet, but not for long. By sunrise, he was gone. Didn't say goodbye, didn't offer advice, just left. Whatever this thing was, it had just found its voice. Which friend of yours would you call and ask to stay the night in a haunted room? Or better yet, would you stay at your friend's house if they told you they were being tormented by a ghost? I don't think I'm staying. John had to be losing his mind at this point. Couldn't have been easy for him to talk about it, to ask a neighbor for help, but I think he did it because he had to prove something. Either it was real, or he was losing his mind. And either way, he was going to get an answer. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done? The noises didn't stop, but now they had company. The voice started low, a whisper in the dark. Sometimes just a word, sometimes a name. Other times, it would mimic the sound of the family praying and twist the words. At first, it only spoke at night, but before long, it started answering questions. The family would ask it things, quietly, nervously, and it would respond, clearly, out loud, in a voice that no one recognized. Then the neighbors got curious. James Johnson had told others what he had experienced, so people started coming to hear it for themselves. They'd gather in the Bell cabin, sit in silence, ask it questions, and the voice would answer. It claimed to be many things. A spirit, a witch, a demon. Sometimes it said it was the ghost of a child buried under the house. Other times, it said nothing at all. There were nights it would sing hymns, and others where it would curse at the children until they cried. It recited scripture, gossiped about the townsfolk, mimicked voices of people who weren't there. It knew secrets, things no one outside the family should have known. The Bell home became a sideshow, a stage for something unseen, something that wanted attention. And the more people that came, the stronger it seemed to get. One night, a group of men visited and tried to outsmart it. They whispered questions to each other, out of earshot, then asked the spirit to answer. It did, word for word. And then, for the first time, it gave a name. Kate Batts. A woman in town, a neighbor John didn't get along with. And just like that, the town had someone to blame. At this point, I'm checking out if I'm John. I'd rather sleep in a tent in the front yard than sit another second in that house. But he didn't. He stayed. He kept the whole family there with him. Honestly, I don't get that part. Curiosity aside, if you're a parent, would you keep your family in that house? Especially knowing that it has a vendetta against you and your 12-year-old daughter? That's a brutal spot to be in. And just when you think the story can't get any stranger, I'm about to throw a monkey wrench into the works. Let's talk about Kate Batts. The voice had called itself many things, but the only name that stuck, Kate Batts. And that name hit hard because she was real. A neighbor, a loud one, sharp-tongued, temperamental, and always in somebody's business. She had a long-standing grudge with John Bell. They'd fought over a land deal. She lost and never let it go. So when the voice said, "I'm Kate Batts," witch, the town didn't hesitate. This was 1817. People believed in curses, witchcraft, evil spirits. And Kate, she didn't help her case. She was known to ask strangers for pins, a superstition at the time. People believed giving a pin to a suspected witch could bind you to her. And she walked alone in the woods, talked to herself, dressed oddly. People whispered about her long before the voice ever said her name. The haunting just gave them a reason to say it out loud. Kate denied everything, said the rumors were ridiculous, but it didn't matter. The voice kept using her name, and the more it did, the more the town turned against her. But the truth? The voice was never consistent. Some days it called itself Kate, other days a ghost, a devil, a lost soul, even a liar. It changed stories like it changed its tone, and that wasn't even the scariest part. The town thought they had their witch, but they hadn't seen power, not yet. That came next, when a future president of the United States walked through the door. Which one of your friends or neighbors would the entity likely name as the witch if your house was haunted? Now imagine something invisible starts tearing your life apart and suddenly that person's name comes out of the dark. Are you going to call the police and tell them that the ghost said your neighbor is beating your kid and tying her to the bedpost by her hair? They think you were nuts and probably lock you up for some form of evaluation. Kate Batts may not have been popular, but that doesn't mean she was a witch. It just means that she was easy to blame, and honestly, it's one of the scariest parts of all of this. The voice didn't just haunt John Bell and his family, it divided an entire town. Let me know in the comments, do you think Kate was involved? By now, the Bell haunting was more than just talk. It was legend, and legends travel fast. Fast enough to reach the ears of General Andrew Jackson, war hero, politician, future president of the United States. When Jackson heard what was happening in Red River, he didn't send letters, he didn't send scouts. He went himself. He brought a wagon of men, armed, proud, and confident. And as they approached the Bell farm, the horses froze. The wagon wouldn't move. The wheels locked tight, even though there was nothing blocking the road. One man tugged on the reins, another checked the wheels. That's when they heard it, a voice from nowhere. "You may go now, General." And just like that, the wagon lurched forward. Jackson pulled his hat lower, looked at his men and said, "By the Eternal, boys, this must be the place." That night, Jackson and his men dined with the Bell family. The mood was tense, but quiet, until one of Jackson's men stood up, a self-proclaimed witch hunter. He laughed, mocked the stories, said he brought silver bullets and would run this witch out by sunrise. The room went still, and then the attack began. He was lifted from the floor, thrown against the wall, slapped over and over by something nobody could see. He screamed, begged. Jackson and his men tried to help, but the man was yanked backward like a puppet and thrown through the front door. A voice boomed from the dark. "There's one fraud in this room, and I'll deal with him." After that, no one joked, no one mocked. The men who hadn't been attacked, they refused to stay in the house. They grabbed their gear and slept outside in tents. And Jackson, he left the next morning. Didn't say goodbye, didn't try again. Years later, he was still talking about that night. He said he'd rather face the entire British Army than to spend one more night with the Bell Witch. The most powerful men in the country ran from that house, but John Bell still lived in it. And the witch wasn't done with him, not even close. If you were in Jackson's company of men, would you have stayed in that house? No way I'm saying. I'd rather be observing from the front yard in a tent. I don't care how tough you think you are. If something throws one of your men out of the room while you're eating dinner, you're gonna remember that. And that's exactly what happened to Jackson. He came in like a skeptic, he left like a survivor. The man said he'd rather fight the entire British Army again than go toe-to-toe with whatever was in that house. And here's the part that's the hardest. John Bell didn't get to leave. That was still his home, his kids, his problem. Let me know in the comments, would you have packed your bags and headed out that night, or would you have stayed? Esther was just going to get eggs. She stepped out of the Bell house, crossed the dirt road, and headed toward the chicken coop, same as always. That's when she saw her. An old woman walking up the road towards the house, frail, stooped, head down. like she'd come from town to gawk at the place everyone was whispering about. Esther didn't think much of it. Visitors had become common. She figured the woman was just another curious soul looking for trouble, so she ignored her and stepped into the coop. But when she came out with the basket of eggs, the woman was no longer on the road. She was halfway up the Bell driveway. Still walking, still slow, but closer. Esther squinted. Something felt off. The woman wasn't moving like before. She called out. The woman stopped, lifted her head, and changed. The face twisted. The body lurched forward. And whatever it was now, it wasn't human. Esther dropped the basket. Eggs cracked at her feet. She ran full speed past the thing and into the house, slamming the door behind her. But when she looked out the window, it wasn't over. The same twisted woman was now standing in the backyard with children, swinging in the trees, laughing like they belonged there. Inside the house, things weren't much better. John Bell had started to fade. His words came out wrong. His eyes wouldn't focus. He barely ate. Sometimes he didn't speak at all. Whatever this thing was, it was wearing him down, piece by piece, like it wanted him broken before it took him. One afternoon, John was walking with one of his sons when he stopped mid-step, and his body twisted. His arms locked, his spine arched back at a painful angle. His jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might snap. Then, he collapsed. His son thought he was dying. Right there in the dirt, he dropped to his knees, calling out, panicked, shaking him. No response. John's eyes were open, but he wasn't there. It lasted minutes. Too long. Long enough to make his son wonder if the witch had finally done it. And then, suddenly, John gasped for air like a man pulled out of deep water. He looked up, and in a voice that didn't sound quite like his own, he whispered, "I don't have much time left." And he didn't, because the next time John Bell lost his voice, it was forever. Things weren't looking good for John. John was once a proud, confident man, a pillar in the community that he helped build. And now, he was just a shell of the person he used to be. Whatever this thing was had beaten him down, tortured his little girl, but yet, it never went after Lucy. It supposedly had an affinity for her. It would sing to her, and from what I was able to gather, never did anything directly to her. Why is that? What do you think made Lucy so special that it didn't go after her? And why on earth would it go after Betsy, a 12-year-old innocent girl? It made no sense. Before we go into how this ends, if you've enjoyed the story so far and are fans of the paranormal, supernatural, and true crime, then please hit that like and subscribe. Now let's find out what happened to John. John Bell couldn't speak anymore. His words came out garbled, slurred. He'd sit at the dinner table, hands trembling, lips moving, but the sounds weren't right. Like someone else was learning how to use his mouth. And then, he went silent. Not just for a night, for weeks. Lucy dressed him, the children helped feed him, but the man himself, he was already disappearing. And on the morning of December 19th of 1820, John didn't wake up. He was breathing, but barely. Lucy went to give him his medicine, a small vial kept in the cabinet, but the bottle was missing. In its place, a second vial, filled with a thick black liquid they had never seen before. Sharp, sour-smelling, almost acidic. They didn't know what it was. They tested it on a cat. The animal died instantly, so they threw it into the fire, and the flames erupted. John Bell died the next day. His funeral was massive. Hundreds came to pay respects to a father, a farmer, a man who stood tall until something else broke him down. But even in death, the witch didn't stay quiet. As the casket was lowered into the earth, the voice rang out laughing, singing, mocking the dead. The official cause of death? Supernatural forces. That phrase, written into record, accepted by a community that had seen too much to deny it. The Bell Witch was never caught, never banished, never explained. She came without warning. She left when she was ready, and what she left behind was a grave. A grieving family, in a town that still tells the story. Some say she still lingers, still watching, still choosing her next name. You don't have to believe it, but Red River, Tennessee, they still do.